When you have to cut a dude down, what does it feel like, man, when his life's gone? Are you hurt inside? You go home like, damn, man.
Yeah, I mean, it affects you absolutely because you don't. I mean, as a human being and as a man, like you don't want to see another person die, especially if you personally don't have any reasons to want to see that person die.
So, Alec, you're a cop in Ohio State prison. What's one of the craziest things that you experienced as a cop working in there?
Oh man, I'd have to say probably one of the craziest things I had to experience was there was a guy down in the gym. Um, Apparently he owed a drug debt. He's sitting on the bleachers. Dude comes up behind him, has two knives on him, both strapped up at the wrist, sticks them in both shoulder blades from behind. Dude takes off running out of the gym. One of the knives still sticking out of him. Ended up going so deep it punctured his lung. And I just remember the dude down in R&D getting ready to get shipped out looks at me and he's like, Alec, I just don't want to die. So it's kind of that was one of the most eye-opening moments because what do you tell a man in that situation?
He's down there in R&D getting ready to get shipped out to the hospital. He's like, man, don't let me die, man. Please, I
Yeah,
don't want to die.
he was a young cat too.
White dudes, black dudes.
White dudes, two white dudes.
See a lot of viciousness from white prisoners in there, or no, on each other?
Uh, Not so much. Um, I mean, they got down for sure if they had to, but not so much, man.
The Cincinnati white boys or wild boys. You ever run into any of them guys?
Yeah, we had a lot of the CWB guys up there. The other main white one was KF's, the Convicted Family. That
Who do you think was the most vicious the most vicious white group or white gang?
I would probably say it was the KF's. The KF's and the Cincinnati White Boys kind of merged, I guess, at one point too, though, just to keep the numbers up. Um, we did have a decent group of ABs, but they weren't really doing too much. They kind of just stuck to themselves and clicked up in their own thing.
Heartless felons. You have any of those guys over there?
Yeah, we had a lot. I would say the Heartless Felons. I'd probably say in most institutions in the state of Ohio, they got the numbers, them and the Bloods.
Those felons probably the most dangerous group there.
Yeah, I mean they're if something's going on, most of the time they're involved in some fashion.
Becoming a prison guard, right? What goes into your thought process? Were you a kid and like, man, someday I'm going to be a prison guard in Ohio? How's it happen for you?
Uh, Not really. I don't know. I guess it was just kind of one of those things that uh, you kind of just fell into it and rolled with it. And I think everybody kind of has that outside fascination of what is prison really like in some sense. And so, because it's like this mysterious world, I guess, to a lot of people. And so you know applied. Next thing you know, I'm getting hired, you know going into a maximum security prison. And
Is that like your first day? I mean, you got some training, you're going into the prison. Are you a little bit nervous? Like, damn, I'm about to work in a maximum security prison? Or you're like, man, I'm here, I'm ready.
uh I think anybody would lie. I think you'd lie if to say that you're not nervous, because Toledo, the institution that I worked at, they had a deadly past. There was a lot of violence there, so you get a lot of the older staff, and your training staff, they're telling you about a lot of the things that happen. So you're like, man, what am I really walking?
You're nervous your first day. You walk in there, you thinking, man, I might get killed working here. You tell your family, man, maybe I shouldn't do this.
No, I never really had that much fear that I would get killed in there or anything like that. I mean, there's always that whole thing like that everybody kind of lives by with it, is that it's not if you're ever going to get assaulted, it's when.
Oh, it comes down to when, huh?
Yeah, because at some point during your time, in some way, shape, or form, you are going to get assaulted, more than likely.
You think some cops kind of drum things up or make it worse than it really is, though, when something does happen?
Yeah. I mean, in some form, yeah. I think things do get a little bit blown out of proportion from the reality of it. They'll take something small and make it a bigger issue than it has to be.
What's the demeanor when you start working there among the cops? Are they like, bro, we got each other's back. We're going to smash these dudes if they ever get out of line? I mean, how's that thing go when you come in?
Yeah. I mean, there's always that, level of camaraderie, and that reassurance of, you know, I've got your back, you got my back. But then again, I mean, when it comes down to time to get busy, everybody gets put in that fight or flight mode.
And the cops take off?
I mean, we've had people run into, because when an emergency would go off, they'd say, a signal 3 in whatever housing unit. So, if you're a responding officer, you need to respond to that. And you'd have some people run into some incidences, man, and they just freeze.
What are they freezing? Because they're afraid of getting assaulted, or they see something, they're like, oh, man, I never expected this.
Yeah, I think that it's some people have never experienced that level of violence prior to it, or had ever been in a fist fight or nothing like that, so they don't know how to react to it.
How old are you when you get a job working there?
I was 30.
30 years old, you start working in corrections. What'd you do before that? I'm curious.
Before that, I was actually a fugitive recovery agent for 2 years prior to that. So that's kind of what snowballed me into that a little bit.
Tell me about that. Fugitive recovery. Okay, so are you a cop?
Well, you just doing arrest for bail bondsmen.
Got a gun?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cuffs, all of that.
Yeah.
Doing that, I'm sure you got some kind of crazy stories like going out and arresting fugitives for bail bondsmen. What's the craziest thing that happened to you when you were doing it?
Had a 5-hour standoff in Detroit with a guy barricaded himself in his mom's house. So that was fun.
I mean, he barricades himself in there. Do you guys think he has a weapon in there or what?
Yeah, and that was the main concern, because the upstairs bedroom that he ended up being found in had a sliding glass door with a balcony. So we were afraid the whole time when we're trying to surround the house that, at any point this guy's got the vantage point on us. If he starts shooting, it's
You're in trouble.
right.
For you to get into law enforcement and doing all of that stuff, what was your life like growing up as a kid?
Oh man, growing up as a kid, I mean, that's that's kind of the funny thing about it, because growing up as a kid, I hung out with a lot of gangsters. We were in that whole thug era, early 2000s, and just young, knucklehead kids. And anybody that grew up with me would probably, they would have assumed that if I was going to be inside of a prison, I would have been an inmate.
I mean, hey, they say it's a thin line, right?
It definitely is. It definitely is.
Let's talk about, there was recently an officer that gets, he gets, murked on, we'll use the word murked because we're on YouTube. He gets murked on Christmas, right, at Ross Correctional Facility. I actually interviewed a guy earlier today, and we talked a little bit about that, right?
Right.
What happens when something happens to an officer, man?
It definitely creates a different environment for the officers, because I feel like in the back of your mind there's this need for revenge. It's like, you hurt one of us, the mentality is, step out of line, we're going to get one of you.
So if someone does something to another officer, you guys take it personal inside, like we're gonna do some bad shit to this dude.
I would say for the most part, yes, everybody pretty much has that mentality.
I mean, that's kind of what the culture is, right? Us against them.
Absolutely.
Do you walk into work? I mean, do other cops? I mean, no, I'm asking you, right? Because I've talked to you, before we got on here.
Right.
But, inside, do you walk in there like you hate all the prisoners, or are you like, hey, I'm going to respect people? I mean, what's your demeanor when you walk into work?
I mean, me personally, I walk into work, you know what I'm saying? You respect me, I'm gonna respect you. I'm not, I never felt like I had anything to prove to myself. I wasn't bullied growing up. I wasn't that, over testosterone jock that didn't make it in college sports or something. So I'm mad at the world now, or type of mentality. You know what I mean? So, and I wasn't going to make my job any harder than I had to.
What about with other cops? You see other cops come in there and they're just like, man, I hate these dudes. They say shit to you like, man, these dudes are scumbags.
Oh, absolutely.
I think when they say that to you, do you brush them off? Are you like, this dude's really an asshole?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of brush it off, just because I feel like a lot of dudes put that uniform on and have that badge on, and it creates a false sense of toughness.
False. Yeah, I mean, not, but look, let's just keep it real, man. I mean, every CO that works in a prison ain't a punk. I mean, some of them dudes can fight, man.
There's some bad dudes, and but my one captain, man, he's actually from my area. Shout out Captain Green. I learned a lot from that dude, because he started back in the old Mansfield Reformatory, which is now basically a museum. And he when I saw him, it's not that inmates feared him, but they respected him. But at the same time, a lot of people respected him because he was known. He'd give you the business, like fair, you know. And but he always said, just be respectful and be you, man. And don't walk around here like you're the baddest dude in the joint, because you're not.
You've seen some bad dudes in there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What else did you experience that maybe affected you in your mind when you went home at night?
Man, there's just there's a lot of suicides. I've had to cut dudes down hanging.
Stop you right there, right?
Right.
When you have to cut a dude down, what does it feel like, man, when his life's gone? Are you hurt inside? You go home like, damn, man.
Yeah, I mean, it affects you. Absolutely, because you don't, I mean, as a human being and as a man, like, you don't want to see another person die, especially, if you personally don't have any reasons to want to see that person die.
So what I'm asking you though, yeah, I mean, that's not everyone feels that way, right? I mean, there's some nasty people in this world, right? People
Oh,
that
yeah.
take people's lives and no remorse, nothing like that. But do you ever have a situation where you went home and it just, you dwelled on it? You felt like, damn, man.
Yeah, Um, we had a guy, Bohannon Miller, and he was a good dude. Like, as far as, you know, from officer to inmate perspective, you know what I mean? He was a good dude. Had him in, I worked in a 4B housing unit for 2 years. I was regular officer in there, which is a lockdown unit. And I had been there for a while, so I had a good rapport with him. Then after that, I had became a chow hall officer. And I'd seen him that same day. He went to rec, came back, rec yard, they got to walk by the chow hall. Then same thing, he had a visit. And, I said, oh man, have a good visit, blah, blah, blah. And it was about 9 o'clock at night. We get a medical emergency call and go up. And I'm one of the first officers to respond to that. And I guess when he was at visitation, he had swallowed a bunch of balloons of meth. And when he was in the shower, the balloons busted. And when I got up there, I started chest compressions on him, and you feel the ribs just breaking and cracking as you're doing chest compressions. And I still have a hard time eating it to this day. But they had mashed potatoes with the like gravy and ground beef in it, and as every pump I'm pushing, that's just coming out of his mouth, and I'm smelling that. And I looked at the other officer I was with, Franklin, and I told him, I said, man, stamp the toe tag, it's over with. But per policy, we had to continue. And I mean, we tried everything we could do. I basically did CPR on a dead body for 20 minutes.
That had to affect you, man. I mean, stress-filled life, right?
Oh, yeah. And like I said, man, it was sad because, I actually had a good rapport with him, and he was a good dude in my eyes. So that, I think, affected me the most. Like, out of any, death or anything that I seen, that one affected me the most for sure.
What happens if you're a prison guard and you kind of show some leniency or favoritism towards inmates? They call you inmate lover, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got I'll be real, I got accused of that a lot.
Other officers, right? Tell us how that works. Tell us what happens, or what that culture's like.
Um they kind of start to frown upon you if you give any kind of leeway, because there's like this whole mentality of you know you got to be tough, don't these are the rules, this and that, wanting to write tickets, and I just was never into all that.
Do you have some beef with some of the people that work there?
um I wouldn't really say that. I mean, I would say that I think some of the officers had some beef with me, but I never had any beef with none of them. I mean, it wasn't nothing personal to me. I mean, because at the end of the day, when they saw me in the hallway or saw me in roll call, or something was going on, I mean, they always respected me whether they liked me or not, because I did do my job. I had everybody's back to the fullest for sure. But you know, there's some things like I look at, okay, you get a lot of dudes that ain't got money and ain't making phone calls. What's the problem of giving this dude an extra, phone call?
Yeah,
You know,
it's not a big issue, right?
no, or not everybody's going to eat steak food. So if I've got extra trays and I know this dude's up here broke and starving, I'd slide him an extra tray.
You'd get flack from the other cops when you did something like that.
Yeah.
That's horrible, man. Because in prison, right, one of the main things I tell people all the time, man, is food. Right, people want to eat.
Right.
And there's been plenty of times, bro, when I went to bed hungry. There's been times where a cop, like they'll throw an extra tray in there, and I'm like, damn. And as a prisoner, I'm like, damn, man, I really appreciate that, man. Like, and I'll never forget that. You know what I mean? I'll always remember that. Man, that dude gave me an extra tray, man. And you know what, man? That may be what makes me always respect him the whole time that I'm in prison. And then I see other cops like, oh, I can't do it, can't do it. Some cops won't do it because they're afraid of what the other cops are going to say. But man, we're all men, and if we were sitting in a cell and you got that little ass tray, you'd be hungry as hell, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. You know, the portions ain't that good, and the food ain't that good either. So
it goes a long way to a guy that's hungry.
Oh yeah, and I'll give you a prime example of when that actually worked out in my favor. So we had a gang fight crack off in the gym. Well, it happened on the rec yard, kind of spilled over into the gym. And you know, we go in there, you know, you're handcuffing dudes, whatever. Uh I have a young inmate. He comes up, man. I mean, he blasts me inside the head, kicks me so hard my hat flies off. So I pull out my PR, my nightstick thing. You know, he's on the ground, and I start short jabbing him like in his armpit. So he gets up and he tries to kick me again after he's already in handcuffs, and I smack him like a downswing, smack him in the back of his legs. And he was a heartless felon, dude. There's a bunch of heartless felons behind, you know, in the gym. But one of the higher up dudes was like, whoa, 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 whoa. After it happened, you know, we start walking dudes back, you know, from rec. We had to escort them back. And that same inmate pulls me aside, like, hey, Elliot, can I holler at you real quick? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, what's going on, man? He's like, hey, man, he's like, you know, that's one of my young dudes. You know, I've always respected you, because he got into a gang fight in another institution. And when he got rode in, and they put him in segregation. Well, while he was in seg, he was like, man, look, you know, I've always respected you, because when we rode in here and we was up in seg, you had no problem giving all of us extra trays. And I'll forever, you know, and I forever appreciate that. And so he's like, hey, man, you know, if you don't press charges against dude, blah, 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 you know, we'll take care of it.
They encourage you to press charges? I mean, like if an inmate assaults you, are you supposed to say, yeah, I want him arrested?
I mean, they asked me if I did, but, you know, I was like, nah, I'm fine. I mean, he ain't hurt me. I'm not, you know, he kicked me in the head. I mean, it was what it was. You know, and I got my lick back. So,
Are there any extra licks when he gets to the hole? Maybe not from you, but from other officers.
well, and that was one of the other stipulations. He's like, man, he's just like, don't take him up to medical and do him bad.
Seen other cops do prisoners bad?
Yeah, I mean, there were some incidences.
Whenever you get a cop on the channel, right, or on any of these YouTube channels, they're kind of reluctant to really, you know, unless they're mad at the system, or they're kind of reluctant to really say like what happened. There's kind of, you still feel like you got a brotherhood, a unity with these guys, even though you
don't. I mean, yes and no. There's a very small circle of them that, you know, I still like and I respect, and, you know, everything like that. But as far as like any of that, no.
ever have to put your hands on anybody?
Yeah.
Why? Tell me why. Tell me what happened.
I mean, you know, I'll be real. You know, I've been involved in some trips to medical throughout my time. You know, one in particular, I'll talk about it, but, you know, I'll keep names out of it and whatnot. We had a guy, he got in a fight. They take him up to seg to the strip out cage. He's in the strip out cage. He's not wanting to talk to nobody, nothing like that. So one of the female officers go up there and is like, hey, you know, maybe the presence of a female or talking to a female, you know, can change his demeanor. And she goes up, tries to talk to him. and he's got a mouthful of blood, spits it right in her face. Okay.
He spits it in her face. That's a major violation. You just disrespected a female staff. For those that haven't been to prison, everybody knows that if you do something to a female staff, you got some shit coming, right?
Yeah.
What does he have coming? I mean, what happens to him?
So, I mean, we go up to medical. I'm trying to ask him questions like, dude, what's your problem? Why'd you spit blood in her face? Da 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 da. That's a female. And he's not answering me. He just keeps looking down, looking down, looking down. And I'm like, so I tap him on his chin like that, like, hey man, be a man, look at me when I'm talking to you. And he's like, man, fuck you. And when he said that, I just, I smacked him.
Was he cuffed? Keep it real. Keep it real.
Cuffed.
Huh?
He was cuffed.
How do you feel about that, smacking someone that's cuffed?
I mean, it's not really my thing, just because, I grew up, boxing and, stuff like that. So I feel like if you're gonna give somebody something, at least give them a fair one.
Well, let's just keep it real though, right? I mean, sometimes you got certain things coming, right? And some people are like, man, they're cops, they can't do that. They're not supposed to do that. But we're all human beings, right?
Right.
If I was working that job and you spit blood in my face, I'm gonna punch you in the face too. If you spit blood in one of my coworkers' face, I don't know, and it was a female, I'd probably be doing the same thing that the cops would do. People know that's what you got coming, right?
Right.
And some people might get mad at me for saying, I'm just saying, if I was on that end and someone shit me down or threw piss on me, I probably wouldn't be working there anymore.
Yeah.
I definitely would put my hands on you. I don't give a fuck if you're a cop or, an inmate. None of that stuff matters at that point, right? There's certain lines that you cross. So you know what? You're handcuffed, but you spit blood on me. So there's nothing fair in love and war, right?
Absolutely. I mean, so I guess that's why I didn't really have so much of any real feeling about him being cuffed, because I'm like, dude, you did some sucker shit. So, I didn't punch him or nothing like that. I smacked him.
Does he end up going to medical and getting a little beat down after the smack?
No. I mean, we left it at that. Because when I smacked him, he started crying.
So I've seen that. So, in this whole Ohio prison system, I've heard a lot of stuff about, like, there's this lady that I may interview. Her son ends up dead. I think that was also at Ross, prior to the cop getting killed. There is kind of a culture in Ohio that kind of reminds me of what the culture used to be in New York. And we'll talk about what happened in New York here in a minute. But I think there's a culture there where the cops really put the beats to prisoners, man. Is that true?
Some places are known for it more than others. That's I would say some of the down south prisons is more kind of known for that. The big, place that nobody wants to go in Ohio is Lucasville.
Ever worked there?
No.
Heard some crazy stories about Lucasville, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the animal house, For
Did
sure.
you ever think in your mind, I wouldn't mind going down there to work for a little bit?
I mean, I always wanted to go down there just because I wanted to see it firsthand. I wanted to see, like, are all the stories true? Are they for real?
Got this thing going on at Ross where the cop dies, right? There's all kinds of shit on Facebook.
Right.
People are talking about it. They're like, hey, look, man, inmates are being beat. They're not getting fed. They're not getting showered. You think that stuff's true?
There's probably some truth behind it.
On a payback, right? I mean, you kill an officer, there's payback, right?
Yeah, I mean, because they're gonna lock the prison down.
They lock the prison down. Explain to us what happens when a prison gets locked down for something serious. Staff assault.
So a lot of times when the prison gets locked down, everybody's on lockdown. You're not coming out, no rec, no showers, there's no movement. None of that kind of stuff. You're getting bag lunch, bag dinners, you know, and that's just kind of what it is. I mean, because I can't remember exactly, but you know, everybody complains about the shower thing, but like I think per policy or something like that, they're only required to give you a shower like once every 4 days.
I mean, I think there's different policies, different places, but what was it? Morrissey versus Brewer, the Supreme Court outlines, I think, in that case, what you're supposed to. I think it's one shower every 3 days, but that doesn't always happen either, right?
Right. You know,
So
and
go ahead.
and you'd be surprised by how many guys refuse showers.
Oh, I'm not surprised at all. I know there's a lot of people that don't want to get, in that rain box. What we call it, the car wash, the rain box, right? There's some dirty dudes. I've had people where I'm like, "Oh, bro, you got to get in that shower, homie. You got to get in that shower. You stink."
Oh yeah.
Did you happen to see the assault in New York? It's been all over the news. They kill that kid Brooks. The cops are cuffing him. They're punching him. They're kicking him in the chest. You seen that stuff?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's that's a what some of us would say that's a training officer's nightmare right there. Because you can't really justify any of those actions.
Can't justify them, but they happen a lot, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, but some things, um, because we had a thing. It's called CYA. Not, most people think that it's cover your ass, but it's can you articulate?
Explain that.
Because a lot of times certain situations don't you don't get any kind of like reprimand on certain things because of how you articulate those incidences in your incident report, because they have to take into accountability, how you felt in that time and everything else. Did you feel like you were in danger? Did you feel like any of your coworkers were in danger? You know, that can justify sometimes the actions with, whatever happened.
Well, I'm sure in that case, from being in prison all them years, I know what happened. Something happened at the other prison where, he had an incident with a cop. And they're like, look, when you have an incident with a cop in this facility, policy is we're going to move you to a close facility and get you away from this group of cops so that there isn't retaliation. So they put him on the bus and they take him over to Marcy. And when he gets there, those cops are like, oh, you got to smart one of my officers? Probably slapped him, kicked him, punched him. They get him in the back. They don't realize that someone's got a camera on, and now it all goes bad, right?
Right.
They're kicking this dude in the chest. They're winging him around. I mean, at some point, enough is enough, right?
Absolutely.
But these dudes have lived in a culture, especially in New York, where, and I said this earlier or yesterday on my live, where the cops are to the point where they're just nasty. They hate prisoners, man. Just like I hate you. I don't even know you, but I hate you. And then, there's the other side where prisoners are like, you know what? They're cops. I hate all cops, right? I'm not like that, man. I've never been like that where I'm like, hey, man, I hate this person. I hate that person. But I think that there is a culture on the correctional side where these guys committed felonies. They don't belong in society. They're scumbags, so we're going to treat them how we want to treat them. And when they start doing shit like that, they become the felons. The cops become the felons. They become the scumbags. They become the people that probably shouldn't be out in society. You agree?
Yeah. I mean, I have to agree with you on that. I mean, because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And I don't feel like any job or title or anything like that gives you any authority to supersede what the law is, because if you did that on the streets, you'd be incarcerated for it.
Those dudes they're indicted. I think tomorrow they're going to drop the indictment. They'll be arrested. Amongst correctional officers, are dudes ever afraid when they put the beats on a prisoner? Like, man, I hope he's all right after it's done. You ever heard those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's why you always kind of have to have that one person that's level-headed enough and kind of standing back to be like, all right, man, enough is enough.
If you were there when this guy's getting beat on and kicked down, through the video, was there a point where you would have said like, "Hey, man, that's it, guys. I think that's enough."
Yeah, because I mean, I think that there's a difference between roughing a dude up and just full-blown assaulting them.
I think that was a full-blown assault right there. I think those guys are getting indicted now. There's going to be little kids without a dad, not coaching their baseball team. You see correctional officers, most of them are out in the country, old country boys, at least the places that I've been, and you hear them talk, and they're like, yeah, I got my son's baseball practice tonight. I'm coaching the team. Now there's going to be kids without a dad. Those dudes are going to prison.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what kind of defense you could possibly put up and say, hey, look, man, in that situation, I was afraid. I responded with force when he was handcuffed and already bleeding and beat. And then I kicked him in the chest and that caused his death. Look, I do criminal law every day. I'm not a lawyer, but man, I'm a hell of a paralegal. And, I could do a trial if I really believe that. But I don't think there's any way. There's no way out of that. Them dudes, they just ruined their families, man. Now they're going to be in a position where their wives are probably going to leave them.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't see any way out of that either.
The only way out is they're going to have to cop out, man, if they get a cop out. And then I think the feds are going to charge them too, pretty much killing a dude under the color of law. So them dudes are all hit.
And it's an unfortunate circumstance on, everybody's standpoint, because, I guess the way that I would look at it too, though, is that, I got kids. So, and, most of the inmates that I come across had children, you know what I'm saying? So so you're saying just because at one point they might have done something, to screw up, and go to prison, so they don't ever get the right to come out and be a father to their children, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly.
So
now there's a big thing over here, right? I'm going to ask you about this. Bunch of protests in New York, right? Cops ain't going to work. They're talking about bringing in the National Guard. They're like, look, we're not being treated right by the administration. The training, we need more officers. We're in danger. All this stuff, these protests are going on right now, right when these guys are about to get indicted, right? And it'll probably take some of the focus off of, the indictments and what happened to Mr. Brooks, and kind of focus on, hey, look, man, the whole New York State prison system, cops ain't coming in. Whenever they do a strike like that, right, and the other cops are like, we haven't been able to go home. We've been here for 36 hours. We're stuck here. We have to man this place, and the other cops won't come in. Is that usually a coordinated effort, though, where they're like, look, man, tomorrow this is what we're doing, guys. Some of you guys are going to have to bite the bullet, no pun intended, but this is what we're going to do, man, and we're doing it for the good of all of us.
Yeah, and a lot of times, because as an officer, you're in the union. So a lot of times they'll take they'll take shifts on doing it. New York might be set up a little bit different than Ohio, but like in Ohio, you can't refuse duty because you can be charged for that.
Can't refuse it in New York either. It's part of their contract, their policy.
Yeah, we can't necessarily go on, a full-fledged strike that no one's coming to work. But when it's your day off or before your shift, after your shift, you can go out there and picket at the front, because we did it at our institution.
Leaving those other cops stuck inside, those cops kind of probably knew, though, that they were going to be stuck, right, before it happened?
Yeah.
Kind of like there's a brotherhood. You guys got each other's back, right?
Absolutely. I mean, because when speaking on administration, when they create an unsafe environment for the officers, that creates an unsafe environment for the inmates now at that point.
Why do you leave your job?
Because of the administration.
What were they doing?
it's there's a lot of politics involved in it. Ohio a few years ago now, got a new director for the Department of Corrections, and it's terrible. It's terrible for the officers. Terrible. Because of the policy things that started to get implemented after that. And then, to be honest, during COVID, I think put a very bad taste in a lot of officers' mouths at that point. We were supposed to get a hazard pay for that. Never got the hazard pay. Instead, they gave us, I think it was like $1.30 or something, $1.50, something like that, extra an hour. So you got dudes sitting at home on unemployment, making an extra $600 a week on top of whatever they're getting. So these guys that are non-essential employees are sitting at home making way more money than we are coming into this institution every day. Now we're mandatory 12-hour shifts.
Did you just walk out one day and never go back, or did you tell them, look, I'm out of here in 2 weeks?
No, I had some vacation time. I was coming up on my 5-year mark. I went, it was right around Christmas time. I took a bunch of vacation days, called off, using up whatever sick time I had. And then, I think it was like 2 or 3 days before I was supposed to come back to work. I emailed the HR and just, long email that, hey, I won't be returning to work. I'm resigning from my position, and never looked back.
How hard was it to walk away?
It was hard because, you build such a bond with, everybody that you're involved with. You get, in some sense, you kind of become institutionalized yourself in a way as an officer. You're so used to that environment day to day, those same people that, so it's like, it is hard at first, but to be honest, it's like when you really see how much that consumes your life, when you finally walk away, it's a breath of fresh air. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I miss some of the people and things like that. Some days I'm like, man, I'd love to go back, but it'd only be for like a couple days. You know what I'm like? I would never do it again.
You miss the action, the fights and the riots. Do you miss that stuff?
In some sick sense, yeah. I mean,
It's an exciting job, right?
it is. I mean, it's exciting, I guess, sometimes, because I always had the big 1 pound can of pepper spray on me, so, it crack off in the chow hall, I'm lighting the whole thing up.
I feel like sometimes prisoners are waiting for action, right? When something happens,
Oh, yeah.
it breaks up the silence and the depression, and people are like excited when this stuff. And I think the cops feel the same way, man.
Yeah, I mean, because I would say probably 95% of the time, prison's pretty boring. It's the same thing at the same time every single day, counts at the same time, childs at the same time, rec same time, and so it breaks up the monotony of it for sure.
What's something you missed?
Man, to be honest, I mean, you miss those little squabbles. You get to go in, spray some dudes down or whatever. I mean, like I said, with inmates too, man. I mean, there was just certain inmates that, it was never anything serious, but I mean, you miss walking into work and you know what I'm saying, talking shit, cell banging with this dude every day, or just other officers that you worked with, and that you miss that, but the job is in a whole, no.
So when you leave the job, what do you end up doing next?
I actually ended up taking a job here for a marijuana facility as a armed security and transportation for that.
Well, you've been getting around, huh? You're not out catching fugitives no more.
No.
You got a family?
I do.
Got a son?
Yep, I got.
How many sons you got?
I got two.
You have 2 sons, right?
Right.
You want the best for them. You don't ever want to see them in that environment, right?
No, absolutely not.
Kind of guide them and be like, hey, look, man, do you ever talk about how old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, my oldest is 18 and my youngest is 8.
Your 18-year-old knew that you worked at a prison, right?
Yeah, he did. I mean, and like any other knucklehead teenager, we all went through those phases. You want to defy authority, and you think it's cool to be out here, you know what I'm saying, hanging out, drinking, smoking weed with your friends, running the streets, which I had to let them live a little bit. I mean, you can't, you can guide them, but at the end of the day, they're going to walk out that door and make their own choice.
I definitely agree with you on that.
Some people used to think that I was wrong for it, I guess, because of the way that I would say certain things to them about the reality. And because I don't know if I can really say it on YouTube, but
fuck it, say it.
The one thing that I used to tell them all the time is, hey man, if you want to keep going down this path and hanging out with these dudes that are destined for prison and have that kind of mentality, you know what I'm saying? I used to tell them all the time, look, man, you better learn how to fight or suck dick and get good at one of them.
Holy shit! Don't say that on YouTube. No, I'm just playing. I mean, unfortunately. Anyway, hopefully he's doing good, But look, man, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. It's not often that, you can get cops to come on and really say, what's really going on. So I definitely appreciate you coming on and doing that to a certain extent. Better than most that I brought on. I brought a few cops on.
And I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I really respect, your channel, your message, of trying to prevent the youth from going down that road and going to prison, because they need to understand there's no badge of courage, or there's no badge of honor in going to prison. It doesn't make you a better man, or cool, or none of that kind of stuff, because you and I both know the violence, that's real, the rapes, the extortion, that's real. And you can say all day that certain things ain't going to happen to you, but until they're put in that situation, you don't know what's going to happen to you.
For sure, man. Again, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to tell people, if you like what we're doing, hit that like button with respect. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, we're out.